Now, I will say, based on things I've read, things I've heard from people I trust, things that are coming out after the fact, now that this is happening, this is not necessarily that surprising to a lot of folks. There were always rumors, or there was always the fact that Coach Moore was constantly like following OnlyFans models, Instagram models, or youngish looking women on his public, his coach Instagram account. He probably didn't necessarily know that those follows are public, or, didn't care. Apparently, according to some of the reporting, the team wasn't wildly surprised. So there is that this might have the air of kind of an open secret. It's unfortunate, obviously, that this is how it played out. It's unfortunate that, Michigan is put in this position. It's unfortunate that Coach Moore put himself and his family in this position. I will say that I know I did say on this program a couple weeks ago that I'd be open to Coach Moore, either be reassigned or lose this job. I apologize. I did not mean to wake the monkey's paw, but we are here now. I guess the next immediate question, obviously you hope whoever becomes the next coach can lock in the current recruits, especially the early enrollees, and keep Bryce Underwood in the fold. But having said that, do you guys have a thought as to who might be your choice to be the coach? There are rumors that there are discussions already underway, but we'll keep those in the tuck just in case it changes. But Jimmy, do you have a coaching hot list that you had hiding somewhere?
No, but I do believe, like you said, for them to make this move, they had to have their steps planned out. So for him to get fired today, somebody has already been contacted, and you don't want to end up like Penn State at 53 days where you have nothing.
Well, listen, I don't know. That's my first reaction, is that they must have known this before. They've been planning and they let it out today. But the planning part is what gets me. When you find out something and somebody's been doing something wrong with sexual harassment, or a staffer complains about that, you may not have the time legally to do to hold off. You might have to act. You might have to act quickly.
This is not being reported as sexual harassment or sexual assault. This is an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. So what it probably is a consensual relationship, but she reports to him. So that's not allowed. I mean, it's not allowed at most companies. It could be every company, but I know, like, for instance, my company, I'm not allowed. I would not be allowed to date one of my subordinates. So
yeah, I don't know if you report to somebody if that is ever consensual.
Right. And that's why it's not allowed, and which is why he's been relieved of his duties.
Well, him being the head football coach, everybody
Exactly.
pretty much in the football program,
Yes,
is going to be under him.
Yes. There are some more salacious type rumors coming out. We can save those for later once they're corroborated, but it doesn't seem like Coach Moore is taking this news well. We'll see. We'll say there have been, personally, when I was talking about Sherrone being fired a few weeks ago, or, reassigned or whatever it was, I was looking at names like Jed Fish, Kalen DeBoer, or even like a Chip Kelly. Chip was really more tongue in cheek.
Please, yeah.
I mean,
no,
there's not really a whole lot of people you can ask right now.
What about Nick Saban or Urban Meyer?
Well, Urban Meyer's certainly not about to be the case, because you
cannot have Urban Meyer.
Regardless of whatever you feel about his recruiting or his coaching or his dealing with people, he just got in trouble for messing with somebody that's not his wife. You cannot immediately hire somebody that just got in trouble for that after you fire somebody for that. So that's why Urban Meyer's a non-starter, besides all the other nonsense that, he would never do it in the first place.
Every time a job comes open, Nick Saban's name comes up. I think he's happy.
Miss Terry not going to let him.
What he's doing.
Miss Terry said he's not coming back. And, mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah, and he's not coming back. You look at the weather here now. He ain't coming back to this.
Right. Yeah. I would love, sure, you make the call and see if he even picks up the phone, but he's 74. He not doing this.
No, he's too old.
I think if he were 64, like Signetti's age, I think you could maybe convince him. But I think 74 is just, especially with the grind and the hours, and now you have to like constantly recruit your whole roster and blah, 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 blah. I don't think he's built. I mean, he would have kept going if he wanted to. It's not like that team that Michigan beat was a bad team. That was like one of the most talented teams he had ever put together.
They were in the top 4.
Yeah, they were a top 4 team. So it's not like he went out on the bottom, you know what I'm saying? But I think he recognized that he's not trying to do what it takes to deal with the modern college football player, which is fine. I'm not saying it as a negative. It's a totally different world when everybody can pay players as opposed to when you're the only one paying players. You know, he didn't want to get exposed. It's fine. I get it.
Making money being on College game day. He's happy.
I mean, we've only got a minute left in this segment, so I'm definitely sure we'll talk about this coming back from the break. But I mean, right now you're looking at either a bunch of retreads or you shoot your shot on somebody Michigan fans have never heard on, which is never going to be the style they want. I mean, there's dudes like Brian Kelly out there looking for a job. I know he would walk to Michigan for this job, but I would walk to the front of the building and fist fight him to prevent him from walking into Schembechler.
Yes.
I think I would have a band of people behind me to do so, but
he's got that suit for $50 million. So
that's right. He's not trying to come, and especially not for what the salary he would receive from Michigan. He don't want all that money from the state of Louisiana. But we will be right back here on Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports here on 107.5 HD2 WGPR. We'll be right back. Jack, Mark, Jimmy.
You're listening to Bullseye Sports presented by Dabo on Sports Rap Network. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
What up, though, Detroit? Welcome back to Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports here on the Sports Rap Network, 107.5 WGPR. Catch us on the Sports Rap app as well as sportsrapnet.com. Obviously, there is more to come from the Sherrone Moore firing, the fallout at the University of Michigan. But once we get any new information, we will pass that along and have that discussion. For now, we need to continue rolling into our regularly scheduled programming. There is another huge game for the Detroit Lions coming up this Sunday. At this point, every game is going to be a quote-unquote huge game. Lions probably would be best served by winning out, especially with the strength of the division. They travel to LA to play the Rams on Sunday. Jimmy, do you think the Lions have a chance? I know Mark has already said they don't, so we'll come to you first.
I think they do. If you look at the Rams and the Lions offenses, they're kind of mirrored on each other. Have 2 good running backs, 2 good receivers. Lions have a better tight end. Well, no, the Lions don't have better tight end right now,
right.
But it's going to be all in who comes to play. If they come to play, they can take this one. And I do believe if they get this one, I've even seen where they still might be in play for the number 1 seed. But a lot of things have to happen. But, I think they can win it. Am I going to predict them? I don't know yet.
Well, when you going to know? I mean, we're faced with it right
when
now.
I need to know.
You got another day.
I would tell you, I like your positivity. I like you being that way, but they're playing in Los Angeles, and I know that they'll have 40%, 50% of the
probably be closer to 70%.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but that LA team is just better than us any given Sunday. But this is one I didn't get to this point where we were having to beat the Rams because I think the Rams are going to get us this time. Stafford's having a good season. Hey, it's just one of those things. They got a chance. They got to play the game.
This is the first time since the Rams championship season that we've played them in L.A. The other 3 times that we've beaten them, we played them at home twice in the regular season, once in the playoffs. So it will undoubtedly be a close game, but, we'll see. And like you said, that crowd, this is not a Chargers game where every game is a road game. The Rams do have a fan base in L.A., but I think that crowd could be key.
I think that's going to be a huge factor in this game. But hey, like you said, they got to play the game. So I don't want to root against my team. I'm not doing that.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it may, and that's why I've been clarifying it. I don't want to root against them, but I call myself a realist. And
are you ready to make your pick now?
Oh yeah, I'm going against what I say all the time because I think the Rams win. I hope they make me the Lions win.
Well,
I hope they win.
You know they're definitely taking that motivation, taking you as motivation.
I hope so, if they heard me. I love the Lions, but I just know that, hey, they're going to L.A. That's a good team. I didn't have them down to win at the beginning of the season. And, they're going out to L.A. They have to deal with the time change and everything. But,
Yeah, I mean,
I've been wrong before. I want to be wrong. I don't want to be right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be the easiest game on paper. But, I mean, the same was said about the Philly game. And, I mean, yes, the Lions did lose that game, but it wasn't because they didn't have the defense to hold the prolific Eagles offense down. They couldn't score any points. Is that
Ravens game?
Ravens game? Yeah, they won. They scored all the points. Chiefs game, I mean, controversial refereeing decisions included, but they weren't necessarily defensively inept. So it's not like they're incapable of stopping good offenses. And I mean, the Panthers just beat the Rams. It was in Charlotte. But still, do you think Carolina is better than the Lions?
No, but I do think that the team will be prepared and ready to beat the Lions because the Lions are a good team. They're not sneaking up on anybody. They're there to play. So that's what I think. That's part of the reason I think the Rams will be ready. That's my thought. I could be, as I said, that could be wrong. I want them to win. But these are the things I think are going against them. They're not going to sneak up.
5 years ago, we had a trade where, and I read about it earlier this week, where they were interviewing people and they were keeping it silent that Matthew Stafford wanted to trade for the GM and the head coach position. They made that trade with LA, and the haul that they got was they got Jared Goff, 2 firsts and a third. With those picks, the Lions turned it into Famu, who was when he was healthy, was an effective safety. They turned it into Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, Broderick Martin, and the defensive end out of Kentucky. I forget his name. Jack, you remember his name? He's hurt
Pascal.
now. Yeah, Pascal. So who do you think won that trade? If you were to ask me, I would think it would be one of those rare situations where both teams won.
Yes.
Rams got a Super Bowl out of it, and the Lions got a lot of talent that they needed.
I would say, go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Sounds like the Minnesota trade in Dallas for, that they got such a haul, but they got a Super Bowl and they got Stafford. Stafford one-on-one or one-to-one has been a tad bit better than Goff.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the rare trade where it's a win-win. And yeah, I think the Rams immediately got what they were looking for, which was a Super Bowl. They got the player that got them over the hump. And the Lions were able to put in place a development plan for Jared Goff, and that has come to fruition. Now, is that going to mean that they're about to win, that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl? No, not necessarily. But you don't always win the Super Bowl when you have the best quarterback. The Bills know that from not just this current iteration with Josh Allen. They know it from when they had Jim Kelly. Obviously, Jim Kelly wasn't the best.
He was one of them.
Right. But, Lamar has only gotten out of the first round twice, is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. You don't always win, even when you have the guy, right? Joe Burrow has made it to a Super Bowl, but now can't stay healthy. So I think that the Lions have to count this as a win, that they have become, at this point, perennial contenders with Jared Goff under center. Have they reached the heights that they, and especially fans, want to reach? No, but it is certain. You cannot say that the Lions aren't better off now than they were before they made that trade.
The Rams won the Super Bowl the first year. Second year, they had a poor year, and the Lions had the number 6 draft pick that year, and that's what they were able to flip to 12 and some 2s. So that was a key part of it. But, it's something that both teams can win on. But one thing that I am worried about right now, beginning of the year, what would you have said that was the Lions' best position?
Before Ragnow retired, we probably would have said O-line. Probably after Ragnow retired, we probably would have said, running back or wide receiver?
Yeah, I would have said running back.
Safety.
Safety would have been up there on the list, absolutely, for Kirby and Bryant.
You have a All-Pro in Kirby Joseph and a Pro Bowler in Brian Branch. And now, Kirby Joseph has not played in 6-7 games with a knee injury. Branch is out with a torn Achilles for this year and possibly next. You might need to shore that position up with the draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, Branch is coming off, severe injury. Kirby is not able to stay healthy. I mean, we talked about it after the Chiefs game. We could see how hurt he was then. And then they obviously gave him a shot, and then he hasn't been able to play since then.
Hadn't played since.
I think there has to be something to be said about whether or not they're rushing guys back or whether or not they're allowing the players to dictate their own health to them, which is probably more so what it is. I don't want to necessarily put it on the doctors and the trainers being negligent or malicious. I think they are probably deferring to the player more about how they're feeling, and the Lions are seeing the consequences of that. Obviously, there's nothing they can do right now in season other than sign somebody off the street. But I think this is something that's going to have to be addressed in the draft. Even though these are two high draft picks and two highly paid players, you might need to spend a third, a second or third round draft pick on a safety.
Well, Branch, not yet. He was in line.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, even worse.
Joseph signed a contract, I believe, this offseason?
Believe so, yes.
Last offseason? Yeah, so.
He was at that point the highest paid safety in the league.
Mm-hmm. So, best laid plans can always change. And I think this is one that's going to have to change a little bit. You might look at free agency signing as well. Because if you look at the Lions' timeline, most of their big-time players are 30 and under. So they still have a window. So you don't want to get too out of the window. So we'll see what they do. But they're going to have to make a move there, I do believe.
Yeah, I'm not even sure who's out there on the couch, sitting there at safety, ready to take over. It's not like, and we'll talk about this in the upcoming segment, but it's not like going to get Flacco or Phil Rivers, who they're, even when they're ramping up, aren't getting hit, aren't working out like that. But, pulling somebody off the street to go full speed at another human being is a tough proposition. But we will be able to get into that and some other NFL related stuff. We may have some more updates on the Sherrone Moore situation, but stay tuned here with us on Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports on 107.5 HD2 WGPR. Jack, Jimmy, and Mark. We will be right back.
You're listening to Wardell, Walker, Barthwell, and our Cobra Commander, Mark Jones, on Bullseye Sports, presented by Dabo. Back after these commercial messages.
Illicit fentanyl is the deadliest drug threat that our nation has ever experienced. It has killed hundreds of thousands. Many of its victims didn't even know they were getting fentanyl. Such a tragedy. This is Robert De Niro. One of those tragic deaths was my beautiful grandson, Leo. He was just 19 years old. Fentanyl doesn't care, but you do. Join us in the fight against fentanyl.
What up, though, Detroit? 107.5 HD2 WGPR. We are back with Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports. You can catch us on the Sports Wrap app, available in the iOS and Google Play stores, as well as sportswrapnet.com. Going to move on just a little bit. We were talking about the Lions. We mentioned needing to get free agents off the street. And I think, we have a list of things we want to talk about. But I think it segues us perfectly into, are the Colts and Phillip Rivers insane? 44-year-old grandfather, Phillip Rivers, was signed to the Indianapolis Colts practice squad yesterday after Indy lost all three of their quarterbacks to injury. Their fourth string quarterback is the only one on the roster, so they needed somebody who knows the offense. The last offense that Phillip Rivers played in was with the Colts during the COVID season. Is this insane? If so, who's more insane, Rivers or the Colts? And do you expect him to actually play? The Colts are 8-5. Like, they're still in championship contention. Is this for real, Mark?
Well, I think he'll play if he gets tight, but he's a good coach. Hold that clipboard that the fourth-string quarterback gives them some good minutes, and that he doesn't have to play. But he might be able to check, spot minutes. But he's old. He's 44 years old, a granddad. But this is no surprise. He's been working on coming back for the whole season, learning the plays, getting his body in shape, throwing the ball. And they had an idea that this that just in case this happened, they had him on the
He
you know,
took
hey,
snaps with the first team today.
yeah. So we'll see. But I think that I guess they didn't think there was anybody else younger that they could call on.
Well, I mean, at this
Right.
point in the season, there's nobody it's not you can trade for anybody, and you need somebody that is at least possibly familiar with your system, and he fits. I'm sure it was a really tough conversation with his family. I'm pretty sure his wife is currently pregnant or just had another baby.
I think they just had number 11, and he might be looking for just a little break.
Or, maybe he need that health insurance to kick back in again. Oh, I don't know. But I think this is absolutely insane, especially if we think he's going to play. Having said that, we see Flacco and Aaron Rodgers have been out here moving around and playing at a relatively high level.
44.
But they both played last year.
Exactly.
Nobody's 44, right?
No, Rodgers is 43, but even then, like you said, Jimmy, hasn't been sitting on the couch for the last 4 years. This also restarts Phillip Rivers' Hall of Fame clock, so he will have to wait another 5 years. Although there's I saw a joke today that he will have to wait another 5 years to not get into the Hall of Fame, but that's here nor there. I think this is a truly wild and desperate move by the Colts. But it's also going to be the ultimate, if they mess around and win the Super Bowl, he's Kurt Warner 2.0, basically. So maybe they're going for the story.
You know what this reminds me of, Jack? 2000.
Yes, yeah.
When Bernie Mac was 2,999 hits. He was 98. He was too short.
Yeah.
And he came back and got the 2 hits.
Yeah. No, he was 3 short. He got 2, but he bunted for the last one.
That's right.
He finally was able to sacrifice.
And he got into the Hall of Fame his next chance. So maybe Phillip Rivers can go lead this team to the playoffs and a playoff win, and, the rest is history.
Maybe you should bring Lou back and let him do the same thing, Lou Whitaker.
He's almost 70.
That would be terrifying.
But in that aspect, I think that I've been, reading the things again, there've been a lot of positive thoughts about Lou because of this and because of him having the 20 points higher WAR. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, the fact that the WAR is so far apart I think is the last nail in the coffin that Lou Whitaker doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. But we'll focus on that a little bit later this evening.
Well, the NFL admitted an error in the Steelers-Ravens game.
Why
did they? I don't know why you admit to that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
With all the errors that they've made with the Lions.
Right.
Why do you admit to it? Isaiah Lively caught a pass, took 2 steps in the end zone, and rather than, because once you catch in the end zone, you feed it down, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what, they admitted that they didn't get the call right?
Yeah.
About what a catch is? Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to figure out what a catch is since Calvin put the ball down in the end zone against the Bears. Yeah, and I just think it's insane that we're still doing this, a decade on, essentially, decade and a half on from all this. And like you said, what does them coming out and admitting that they made a mistake do for the Ravens? It's not like they're going to replay the game from that point.
And that was a play that, would have made a difference in the score.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming it might have been just like a letter like the Lions used to get all the time.
Right.
But, if you can I'm trying to think of the call this year they did that New York called and said, no, you got to call it this way. If you can do that on other calls, why not this one? Hey, it did look like he got his feet down. Touchdown.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, it's just wild to me that, and Lively now has a reputation of not being able to secure the ball in clutch situations. This is like the second time he's fumbled this season. He had the catch against the Chiefs where he couldn't get his foot down last season. So, he's now being unfairly maligned as somebody who's not clutch, can't hold on to the ball in the clutch. The league stole one from him. Stole a game from the, potentially stole a game from the Ravens.
Yeah, because you would think, Mike Tomlin would be even more on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah.
Our ball would be a little bit off.
It would be less on the hot seat. Yeah.
I still don't think Lamar is looking well.
No.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to affect people's jobs. Like you said, it might completely flip those two.
Playoffs.
The playoff position, yep. Which of those two coaches is going to get fired? That was huge. That was a huge game for those franchises.
Mm-hmm. They still have another one to play, so I'm wondering, does Baltimore get a mulligan? But if you go back to, I guess, May of this year, this was thought to be the 2026 draft was thought to be the draft where they might have 6 quarterbacks drafted. Everyone was good. Nussmeier, guy at South Carolina, Arch Manning, and others. And right now, you might have Mendoza and Moore. If he decides to come out drafted with KJ Simpson of Alabama in a late first round. On the flip side, Ohio State has 4 of the top 15 picks in the mock draft. And that's not including Jeremiah Smith or Julian Sang, who's a Heisman Trophy candidate. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things happen.
Yeah, I think that we're still going to see a large number of quarterbacks go early. It's just not going to be remotely the list that everybody thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. You know, there's no Cade Klubnik. There's no Garrett Nussmeier. There's no Arch Manning. I think that there's no Lenore Sellers.
He can come back.
I think that does 2 things, though. I think one improves the pool of talent that is going to be in college football next year, and thus raises the level of play next year. But it also, gives an opportunity to the guys that actually showed themselves to be good college quarterbacks this year. But having said that, I do notice in this, especially this previous draft class, the quarterbacks that are performing the best in the NFL, Caleb, Bo, Drake May, did not necessarily have the most team success in college. Caleb obviously won a Heisman. So, I always had some really great individual success. But when you look at like JJ, Michael Penix, they're not performing well at all this year. They're hurt or they're just not playing very well. So it's really interesting to see how it breaks down. And sometimes, and just like in the NBA, like you can be a really good college player, but not be right for the pro ranks, right? And it's really interesting to see, like, yeah, JJ was the perfect quarterback for Harbaugh and for Michigan, but he may not necessarily be the perfect quarterback for Kevin O'Connell's situation, right? So it's just really interesting how this quarterback class is going to shake out.
This is true. Which brings me to my next sort of question. What to do if you're Cleveland? If you think Dante Moore or Fournette, because I think New York is going to go all out for Fernandez. I just believe it. The Jets.
Mendoza?
Yes, Mendoza. Yes, I'm sorry. I believe they're going all out for him because they need that. But I mean, if you're Cleveland, you thought that the Jacksonville pick was going to be worse than your own pick, but that ain't happening. And I have my correspondent from Cleveland to tell me what the people of Cleveland are saying about the quarterback.
Who is your correspondent from Cleveland?
We don't disclose sources.
Oh, okay.
I ask you for who your source is.
He knows my correspondent very well. Your daughter.
Right. We don't disclose sources. We don't ever ask you for yours. We will always protect the integrity of sources here on Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports. Your name and information is safe with us.
She went and talked to some of her peers and stuff like that. And some of them are saying he's doing great coaching essay. I'll just leave that at that abbreviation. He's pretty bad. I hope that helps. The offensive line may have something against him because they suck too. The coach don't do Shador right at all. And the Cleveland Wags love being messy. But I think listening to all of the shows and stuff like that, Shador has a nice following of people that believe in him. And I think you have to really look at it. Is Cleveland the place for him?
It doesn't look like
he's
it.
Doing well there.
Doesn't look like it. They don't want to accept him. The coaching staff.
What up, though, Detroit? Welcome back to Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports here on 107.5 HD2, the Sports Rap Network. You can catch us on the Sports Rap app, available in your Google or Android app stores, as well as sportsrapnet.com. Jack Hartwell, JP Wardell, Mark Jones here with you at the top of the hour. Obviously, the biggest story of the day, Michigan football head coach Sherrone Moore was fired for cause by the university a couple hours ago. Details are still emerging, as to what's going on with the coaching search, as well as more details coming out about Coach Moore's situation. We will wait for more information to come out before we address some of that. Catch us tomorrow. But we do want to shift gears and talk about the current pride of the University of Michigan, the men's basketball team. Michigan beat Villanova last night, 89-61, just barely missing out on beating another team by 30 points. Deep bench and the walk-ons allowed Villanova to get a tiny bit closer at the end of the game. Michigan has, I believe, their fifth or sixth game with a different leading scorer this year. Cadeau, the transfer from North Carolina, led the way with 18 points, 4 assists. So joining in on the scoring sheet were Ade Mara with 11, Trey McKinney with 10. But just another suffocating defensive effort by the Wolverines against a pretty good basketball team. Michigan was able to force 15 turnovers. They had 5 blocks, 9 steals. Is this team for real? What do you guys think about Michigan Wolverines basketball team after their victory over Villanova? Jimmy?
I think they are, but I saw a couple telltale signs for me. One, I think they got a little too cute last night, getting a couple turnovers, throwing long passes, trying to get the easy, trying to get dunks and highlight plays. I think they shot a little bit too many threes, but one thing, is a good thing. You have 6 different leading high scorers in 6 different games. But I'm looking at Yaxel. He almost went pro last year. He obviously wants to go pro this year. I'm just hoping that his people aren't going to talk to him, dude. You can't score 9 points and go pro. You got to score more. And, you get people like that talking to you. And then that whole team chemistry can go away real quickly. But, I like what I see. I just hope they can keep it together and play as a team.
I think that's very good insight. They're playing well right now, but this is December. They look like the team to beat. They look like one of the best teams I've ever seen in high school basketball. College basketball. This is a seriously good team, but injuries could happen. Dissension could happen. And when you start blowing people out like this, you start to smell yourself. And Jimmy, that's up to the coach to make sure that he keeps them disciplined and playing the right way. Like Larry Brown used to say, there's only one way to play, and that's the right way. It's going to be up to this head coach to make sure that he keeps his team focused, playing together, because, again, they look like they're world beaters. And that's the challenge with this team. I think they can go as far as they want as long as they don't start smelling their own tea leaves and reading their own press clippings. Stay focused. They can do it. I think May is the guy to get it done. But it's a long season.
Well, I was at the game against Rutgers, and I went with a friend of the show, and we were able to get in the locker room afterwards. And this team, just being able to see them like on the court after the game when they were doing the post-game interviews, the whole team is standing behind Dusty, and then the whole team was standing behind Yaxel. I think that seeing them interact with the fans, how truly excited they are to seem like they enjoy playing together. I saw Yaxel and Roddy sign as many autographs as they possibly could before, they got rushed down the tunnel. They get really excited when the deep bench comes in and when the walk-ons come in. They seem like this is a really well put together group. But yeah, I think what will come into play are facets of what you guys both mentioned. Jimmy, I think people getting in Yax's head is definitely something that could become an issue. But I also think that, there was the things that the NBA told him that they wanted him to work on were rebounding and distributing. I think there was a lot of evidence that he could be a high level scorer, but they wanted to see how he can impact the game in other ways. And I think we are seeing some of that. I do agree that he does need to continue to be aggressive on offense and look for his offense. But I think we found like a perfect medium for him. I was not familiar with his game at UAB. I had heard about it during the offseason and watched a couple games, but, obviously you see he was talented. But, he is one of the smoothest college basketball players I've seen in a long time. Like, he doesn't look like he's expending a ton of effort when he's out there on the offensive end. Everything is fluid. He gets into moves, in and out of moves really quickly. He's got a great handle. He's got a good feel for when he should take the outside shot, when he should try to get inside. So I think that, and this leads into one of the discussion questions Jimmy wanted us to talk about. I think his integration into the team is one of Dusty May's best attributes. Think that, Jimmy, I think you were going to bring up, is there a lot of Kurt Signetti in Dusty May, right? Is he, one, the right coach for this new era where you have to be supremely confident in your system and what you're looking for, but then also like having the eye to go out and get those guys, right? And bring them in and have them buy in and realize, hey, I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? You may not have necessarily heard my name before, but you've seen my work. I know what I'm doing. But Jimmy, do you think they've got enough depth this season?
Oh, yeah. And I think especially since he made the move of having Mara come off the bench, because you remember you had 7'3", 6'10", 6'9" along your front line. And I think having Mara come off the bench gives you another big man with Cheddar. And, you've got a lot of depth there that you can just throw bodies out there all the time.
That's what I think.
And it looks
too.
like they're integrating Oscar Goodman in there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. That this team is deep. They're 9-0. Could this be the first team from Michigan that we see go undefeated, and the first team since the 76 Indiana Hoosiers to go undefeated?
No,
I'm not willing to go that far. I think that, one, there's just so many games.
31.
Yeah, and then you've got the Big Ten tournament, which is now 2 extra rounds because of how many teams there are. Michigan, if they were undefeated, Michigan would be the number 1 seed. There's 3 games there, and then you got to win 6 to win the national championship. I mean, we're talking about 40. Are they going 40-0? I don't know. I would love to see it. Of course, I'm not saying you're hating. That's just a lot of games to win in a row.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I don't want them to do that. Because sometimes when you get to that point, you're playing not to lose instead of to win. I would rather us pick up a loss and you learn from it and move on.
Well, if they can do it, I wouldn't mind it, but I hear what you're saying. That's what Al McGuire used to say, that he used to like to lose just before the tournament because it got to pique the kids' attention. Again, this team is beating people by 30 and 40, 20, 30, 40. I've never seen anything like this.
I'm sorry. I just think it's like, I think a piece of it is, I hear what you're saying, Mark. And yeah, of course, I would love for them to go undefeated, but I think it's somewhat of what the Lions were experiencing last year when they were on that run where they hadn't lost in a while, right? And I was on the show talking about, I think that they should probably lose a game sometime soon so that they didn't have all the pressure from themselves and the fans of like trying to win every single game, especially once you get into the playoffs. You have to win every game, and they were going to need to release some of that tension before the playoff run started. Now, obviously, it didn't work out the way that Lions fans would have wanted it to, but I think there is something to be said for, okay, we think we're great. We think we're, obviously our goal is to win every game, right? But now that we know that we don't have to have that specific pressure on us, we can play our game for real. And I think that will do more for the team.
But I am looking for
and
this
if you
team
look at
to
the
win
way
the
the
Big
Lions
Ten.
play after a loss,
Yes.
They always come out more aggressive and play their better games. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking for this team to win the Big Ten, both the tournament and the season. I'd be shocked if they didn't. And I know they got to play Purdue, and that's a good team. Michigan State is good. There'll be others that come out of the woodwork in the Big Ten.
But you know what happens a lot of times in the Big Ten tournament? Teams will start to pull away and not play as hard in the anticipation for the tournament. Michigan last year, they would have been in, but it made a great story that they won the tournament.
Yeah,
Purdue, I don't think played as hard as they could have.
When you're winning by 40, though, beating teams like they beat ranked teams by 40, are they going to have to play hard the whole game if they come in with the right folks? That's, they can.
You got injuries. You got just the funk. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, to Mark's point, I mean, there are 3 Big Ten teams in the top 10 of the net rankings. There are 4 in the top 15, and I believe there are There are 6 in the top 25, and I think there are 8 teams in the Big Ten in the top 50 in the net rankings, which is one of the indicators used by the selection committee. So the Big Ten is shaping up to be possibly the best conference in the league or in college basketball this season. So there aren't going to be very many easy outs for Michigan in the Big Ten. So I expect Michigan to drop games. I even expect them to drop games to a team that we would not necessarily be expecting them to lose to. Every team has games that they don't get up for. We hate when it happens, but even when Michigan football went undefeated in 23, that game against Bowling Green, was a game where it looked like they weren't all the way up for it or were looking ahead. And you're definitely going to have that in a season where you've got 40 games.
Or in 97, that game against Iowa.
Yes.
Where they came on at the last minute. So you're going to have some games like that.
But we have got to pay some bills. We need to make sure that all of us are not going to be fired for cause by the university or by the stations. We will be back here on Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports on 107.5 HD2 WGPR, the Sports Rap Network. Be right back.
You're listening to Bullseye Sports, presented by Dabo on Sports Rap Network. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, what up, though? It's your boy, Young JOC. That's right, Young Jock, man. Taking over the mornings with Shawty and Miss Shanika on SportsRapNetwork.com. 107.5 WGPR HD2. We all we got, baby.
What up, though? Welcome back. Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports here on 107.5 HD2 WGPR, the Sports Rap Network. You can catch us on the Sports Rap app, available in the Google Play Store as well as the iOS Store. And you can catch us on sportsrapnet.com. Back here with Mark Jones and Jimmy Wardell. We are talking Detroit sports. We talked a bit about college football to start the show off, but we can segue into the game at large. We don't have a ton of info yet on what's going down with Michigan after the firing of head coach Sherrone Moore. But wanted to discuss the larger points of college football a little bit. Jimmy, do you want to take the lead on this?
Sure. Well, we all know that Notre Dame turned down the Pop-Tart Bowl after failing to gain admittance into the college football playoff. But we also had 2 teams, Iowa State and I believe Kansas State, which were eligible, won 6 games, but turned down going to a bowl game. We also had, there some 5 and 7 teams can get admitted, but you had to have the high academic graduation rate, and we had about 6 or 7 of them turn it down. It was teams foregoing bowl games. Is it good or bad for college football? I will say this, in my opinion, because these bowl games, you get an extra month of practice. You can actually play some redshirt players and with no fear of burning a red shirt. It was really, bowl games are really about the practice and getting to go away someplace. So I think, did they miss out? Yeah. I think Rutgers was the only Big Ten team that was caught up in that. But, and well, let's be real. Kansas State and Iowa State cost themselves $500,000 because they were fined by the conference. Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, but we'll get to some of that crazy stuff in a minute anyway. So I think you miss out on just the camaraderie, the extra practice, a month of extra practice, and getting ready for next year.
Yeah, my thing, I think I have 2 different minds about that part, right? So the 5 and 7 teams that were asked to go to bowls after there weren't enough 6 and 6 teams, or not enough teams with enough wins. I have a bit more sympathy for them, especially if they're a team that got their 7th loss like fairly early in the schedule, or before the last week of the season, right? Because most of those teams have already mentally checked out. 1, 2 guys have already made decisions and plans to go home for the holidays after finals, that kind of stuff. And it's really hard to get everybody back together if they've already gone home or that kind of stuff. And especially if you've got like a coach that's getting fired or a coach that's leaving for a different job, you don't really care that much anyway, unless you're trying to transfer and put more tape on film. For the 6 and 6 teams, like the Iowa State and the Kansas State not going to a bowl, I don't understand the rationale there. Iowa State, maybe I understand it now with Campbell leaving, but they had already decided not to go to a bowl before that had come to pass. The same And Kansas State, their coach isn't leaving. I don't understand why they're not going. I think you mentioned the practice is, I think, the most important part for teams, especially teams that finish middle of the pack, right? That's an opportunity to get better that your rivals that were below you don't get. So, yeah, I'd be really interested to see what their rationale was. Like I said, the 5 and 7 teams I get, but the 6 and 6 teams not going, that doesn't make any sense to me.
And even if you listen to, I know it's a different sport, but when the Fab Five talk about their trip over to Europe and how they really didn't want to go, but they ended up bonding even more, sometimes going down to these bowl games, they have the little competitions, like, stuff like that. It makes a difference.
Costs money, though. I would tend to want to go, I would think, for the camaraderie, as you're saying. But it does cost money. Players may or may not want to play to get hurt, but I think it's the matchups for the conventions at these big cities are losing out too. Fan base. It's a great way for the university to raise fundraisers and all that. Keeps the fan bases engaged. So I think they lose out if they don't go. But but Jack, you raised some good points about having to get the kids back, whether they really want to do it. Football is grueling. It's a grueling sport. Maybe some of the kids, if they're 5, have a losing record, maybe they're tired and want to rest their bodies for the next year and get started training. It's
I'm going to ask a crazy question. With Michigan going through what they're going through on the football side, do you expect a lot of people not to play in the bowl game?
Before 3 hours ago, I would have said no. Now, yeah, I think it's going to be a case of anybody that's not transferring.
It does. I really like the old way when all the games meant something, and you had them all on New Year's Day. I'll miss that, but all the meaningful bowls are gone.
Well,
except for
a lot of this has gone away because when you're in the Big Ten, the old Pac-12, you used to get up to go to the Rose Bowl. Now the Rose Bowl is one of the playoff games. Orange Bowl, a lot of these bowl games are like that. So it's just a new world. But we talk about this, but college football, in terms of the bowl committee, has gone crazy. I'll just put it that way. We had a problem this year with they didn't want to have a 7-5 Duke team playing in the college football playoffs. But next year, that's going to be fine. They can play in it. What needs to happen is the ACC needs to amend their rules. So whatever cockamamie number 5 they have, you pick the best the highest team with the highest ranking to play in your championship game, which would have pitted Miami and Virginia, number 10 versus number 14. I don't know how many people really want to see James Madison and Tulane play against the big boys.
Nobody, except for the people from James Madison and Tulane.
We've already seen Tulane play against Ole Miss, and that's who they play in the playoffs. That was not a pretty game. Now, Notre Dame AD Bavakwa has just been going on a scorched earth tour, blaming the ACC for Notre Dame not getting in and Miami getting in. Well, Miami is in the ACC. Notre Dame, you chose to be in ACC for 22 out of 24 sports. Football, you're an independent, and hockey, you're in the Big Ten. So if Jim Phillips has to choose between trying to get Miami in or Notre Dame in, who do you think he's going to pick?
The one where he gets a check?
Exactly.
I don't understand why Notre Dame is acting like this. Because of course they're not going to advocate for y'all. They don't get a...
No, and you like it, so you get the only cut. But when your cut is cut out because you weren't good enough.
Because you didn't make... Yeah, it ain't the ACC fault. Y'all not good enough. Join the ACC.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's schedule was not all that once you take away the...
Miami and Texas A&M.
Texas A&M and Miami, which is they do play 5 ACC games.
Yeah.
Do we want them in the Big Ten still?
Notre Dame has to realize that, hey, you got to beef it up. You can't play Stanford every year and then complain about not making the playoffs.
Do we still want them in the Big Ten?
I don't want them in the Big Ten. I don't think anybody should want them in the Big Ten. They should not be rewarded for being a crybaby. At this point, what should happen is the ACC should tell them to go kick rocks, and they can go try and schedule 12 games a year by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is what should happen. They should not be rewarded for their behavior. Personally, that's how I feel.
Yeah,
I mean, they would do this. They wouldn't. It's not like if they had gone to the playoff, they would have given the ACC the equivalent amount that they would have gotten from Miami. It's not like they would have, out of the goodness of their heart, given that checkup. Notre Dame's entire athletic philosophy since I've been alive, and it seems like it's been the entirety of their history, has been wanting to have their cake and eat it too. Anytime they are told no, they take their ball and they go home. So, no, let them whine. Let them schedule the Citadel and Army and Navy and Air Force and Idaho and whoever they can cobble together to get 12 games and see if they really get left out of the playoffs next year.
And they also, I don't know, they might lose their head coach, Marcus Freeman, because of this nonsense.
Hey, he can come to Michigan. I'll take Marcus Freeman in a heartbeat.
Yeah, well, but the powers that be ain't gonna go 2 for 2.
Yeah, we for sure not getting another one at Michigan.
Yes.
Boy, we ain't never getting another one at Michigan, football or basketball.
But Marcus might decide to go to pro.
Yeah. If I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm more mad at my AD than the CFP committee because he just made our job so much more difficult next year. Yep. We have to take a break real quick. We will be right back here on Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports here on 107.5 HD2, the Sports Rap Network. Jack, Jimmy, and Mark will return in a second.
You're listening to Wardell, Walker, Barthwell, and our Cobra Commander, Mark Jones, on Bullseye Sports, presented by Dabo. Back after these commercial messages.
Sports, culture, and old school hip-hop. This is Sports Rap Network on WGPR HD2
Okay,
Detroit.
good people. We're glad you stayed. Now back to the home team. Bullseye Sports, presented by Dabo on the Sports Rap Network.
What up, though, Detroit? What up, though, America? Here on 107.5 HD2 WGPR, the Sports Rap Network. We are Dabo Presents Detroit Bullseye Sports. You can catch us on the Sports Rap app, available in the Google Play or iOS stores, as well as sportsrapnet.com. Jack Barthwell here with Mark Jones and Jimmy Wardell for our last segment of the evening. Jimmy, take it away.
Well, we're at the Cup, which traditionally comes about the 1/3 of the year of the NBA season. We have Oklahoma City Thunder at 23-1. And are winning today. We're going to talk about the top 5 teams in the first third of the season. So I think everybody will say that Oklahoma City Thunder, last year's champions, and this year running away with the West, would be the number 1 team overall. We in agreement?
I agree.
The Pistons have the second best record at 19-5. And, Denver Nuggets are at 17-6. I personally, Denver's look good from what I've seen, and I might give them the number 2 nod, playing well.
I go along with that.
Pistons?
Right now. They have not missed a beat with my man, I forget, Michael Porter Jr., that they traded to Brooklyn. They look like they have a little more depth this year. I think they still miss Westbrook with that little spark he used to bring off the bench. But the Canadian is playing real well as well from Kentucky. His name is escaping. Jamal Murray.
Yes.
He's
just put
playing
up 50
real well.
last week, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, his consistency is what puts them a little bit over the top on the Pistons. But I have the Pistons at 3, and I think the one thing that they're doing well is their defense. You've got guys like Sir Thompson, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and others coming here and just play today. Just play great defense. Switching, no problem. Blocking shots. Even Cade is blocking some more shots this year. And I think Ivy looks like he's engaged on the defensive end, something he hasn't always looked at. So I think they're playing well. Now, I think the one problem they're having is shooting. And a lot of time, these last couple of games they've lost, their three-point percentage was under 33%, and the team switched to a zone defense, kind of throw them off. So, if the Pistons can get that, maybe come up with another shooter. I think they'll be well on their way to the finals, I do believe. Fourth, I have a team that started out slow. I think they lost first 2 or 3 games, but they have come on real strong, the Houston Rockets.
I like that pick.
They are doing everything. And Kevin Durant, it's the first time since I would say he was in Golden State, hadn't had to do it all. And I think he's enjoying that. And, I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. They play Denver on the 15th. That might be a good game to watch because I think both of those teams are playing well, and they are going to be trouble. Now, for fifth pick, I had to go between the Knicks or the Lakers. I'm not sold on the Knicks right now. I think they're doing great. They looked good yesterday, but they beat a depleted Toronto Raptors team without R.J. Barrett and another one of their starters. And Karl-Anthony Towns is not playing as well as he has. He might be hurt. But I tend to believe that the new-look Lakers with Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James being a jack of all trades. If you need him to score, he scores. If you need him to pass the ball, he had a streak of over 10 years of scoring double figures.
LeBron?
He had a chance. He made the
LeBron streak. The streak was actually 19 years old.
19 year, almost 20. He passed it to Rory. Rory hit a game-winning shot. So I think, if LeBron keeps that up, this Laker team is going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, I like that list. My only quibble, I think that the Lakers would be my third choice. I think they are in a better position than Denver, because I think that with the way AR and Luka were playing without Bron, and then you add Bron back into the mix and they don't miss a beat, and in fact, they essentially play at an even higher level, I think that, they're just in a really good spot. I do think that Denver and Houston are battling out for like that third spot in the West. I do agree with your list. I just would quibble a tiny bit with the positioning. I think I personally have the Pistons as second best team. I think I'm doing that for a couple reasons. I think one, I'm trying to separate them because they don't have to play in the West and they don't have to deal with OKC in the same vein. I think it's acceptable to put them like kind of on their own separate track. But also I think they just are doing it the right way. They've shown that they can win with a variety of different lineups. They were able to win when everybody was hurt. It was only 1 or 2 games, but, when the bench mob was able to come in and lock down some wins. So I think they're just a really talented, young, and together basketball team. But I wouldn't quibble about, I'm not going to hate on the fact that you've got them third or fourth. But yeah, I just think they have a little bit of extra runway because they don't have the gauntlet of the West to go through. Having said that, I did see a video of Jason Tatum playing one-on-one at the Celtics facility today. And I don't know, he might be a cyborg, so that could be the only option. But it looks like he's seriously considering playing professional basketball this year. I could see if Boston is able to keep afloat and not afloat, they're third in the East right now.
I think they will.
If they're able to maintain this position, especially like straight in the playoffs, not even having to deal with the play-in, I think we might see Jason Tatum this year come back and play actual games that count, including playoff games.
And that's a scary thought. Now, the only reason I don't have LA higher is because I believe when you have a tandem of Luka, Austin Reeves, and LeBron, defense is optional.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think in a 7-game or 5-game series, or 7, they only play 7 in the NBA. Yeah. That's going to become a little bit of a problem where they will have to have shootouts and not, rest on their defensive laurels. Maybe Rob Pelinka makes a move at the end of the year. And with the trade deadline to get a defender, we'll see. DeAndre Ayton has fit in nicely there, better than I thought.
Yeah, I agree that I don't love their depth. I mean, I think the depth has played well this season so far, but I don't think it has the track record to truly be contenders, or not contenders, but to finish the job. I don't think anybody has enough to beat the Thunder in a 7-game series right now anyway. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I do think that they're depending on Ayton to play defense for the whole team, basically. And that is going to be tough. He's still contributing offensively, but I think they're asking him to do a ton, and they could use another big to back him up.
Yeah, but remember the team that now has the 73 wins lost in the finals because of injuries.
Very true.
And, if you get an injury to SGA, that's a whole different team.
Yeah, I mean, that team then skids into looking not as bad, but you start to look close to what Indiana's dealing with, missing Halliburton. I do think they are going to get a burst from J-Dub when he finally is fully weaponized and fully recovered. But, Chet is playing at a crazy high level this year. Harten's is playing well. They're just so good. But yes, I do think that they would be absolutely devastated if, Shea was to get hurt. I think they could weather a Chet injury, Hartenstein injury, a Dort injury. Shea is the straw that stirs that drink. And I think everybody knows that. I mean, there's a reason he's the MVP. There's a reason he's got his own shoe, et cetera, et cetera. So, he's one of those guys.
Now, Mark, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you guys say it all. What can I say? I like the Pistons at number 2. I'll pick the Pistons over number 2 as number 2 because I'm a homer. And, I think Denver's lost a step, but I'm going with the Pistons as number 2. All the rest of the stuff you guys covered pretty well, and I can live with either one of your lists, so I'm good.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see, the NBA Cup is coming to an end soon, and the 4 teams involved. This year, it's not like there's a team outside of the playoff fight trying to win the $1 million. I think you're just going to continue to see high-level basketball. I am worried about all the injuries we've seen this season, not just the serious ones, but also Giannis being out 2 to 4 weeks with a calf strain, Wemby being out with a calf strain. We've seen all these strains and sprains, and we know that guys are playing more and more games and more minutes, and we've seen a lot of Achilles go already. I hope we are not gearing up for another epidemic of Achilles tears.
And hey, Darvin Ham finally lost the cup game.
Yeah, Darvin Ham will not win the Darvin Ham Invitational for the first time.
In the last little bit, which star is more likely to be traded? Giannis, AD, Kyrie, Trae Young, or Lauri Markkanen?
Well, basically, I think it's really only Lauri or Trae because the other ones is hurt. And I'm not trading anybody for damaged goods until they show up and put something on tape, to me.
Atlanta actually has looked better without Trae.
Yeah.
Letting Jalen Johnson come in and do his thing. And they got a lot of young athletes.
Well, this has been an incredible discussion day of sports. We've had a lot to talk about. We will have even more to talk about tomorrow. Join us again at 7 p.m. on 107.5 HD2.